Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to my fantasy matchup series, and today we got a bit of a special one. We got Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Mike Tyson. Now, this is one I've wanted to talk about for a long time because, it's one like I think a lot of people are overlooking this fight because a lot of people think this is a dumb fight. They think, oh, Mike Tyson's a heavyweight, Floyd Mayweather Jr. is a heavyweight. You know what I mean? But I just don't think that's the case. I think this is a very stylistically interesting matchup. You know what I mean? I think this is one of the best heavyweight fights that we didn't see, and that's why I'm going to talk about it in this video. So, we look at both guys' last fights, and you look at Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s last fights. Or actually, we'll start with Mike Tyson. You look at Mike Tyson's last fight against Roy Jones Jr., and it was a pretty good fight. Mike Tyson completely outboxed Roy Jones Jr. You know what I mean, and completely the guy was robbed, in my opinion, to get a unanimous decision. I have no idea why they gave it or they had it a draw. You know what I mean? I thought the judging was atrocious on that night, and it's a shame because you see a legend like Mike Tyson at the age of however old he is, 50 something years old, uh, get robbed in his last fight, and it's a shame, but. It was a good performance by Mike Tyson. He completely outboxed and schooled Roy Jones Jr. in my opinion, and that's that. But then you have a fight like Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Logan Paul, which was obviously Floyd's last fight, and you guys saw that Floyd, was basically just beating up Logan Paul for 8 rounds, I think it was. You know what I mean? And she, should have won that fight as well. I think Mayweather was completely robbed. I do not know why they gave it a draw. I thought it was ridiculous. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. You know what I mean? In terms of whose performance was more impressive, I think Mayweather's performance against Logan Paul was impressive because you have Logan Paul, who's always been this. He's a good boxer, right? He's big. He's a cruiserweight, right? He's got that long, good jab. You know what I mean? He's got a good chin, right? Um, and then you have Roy Jones Jr., who isn't as good, in my opinion, right? I don't know, there's something about Roy Jones Jr. I just never seen as like, I don't know, I do think he's like, his career was a bit overrated. So, I don't know, I don't rate the guy too much, to be honest. But, yeah, anyway, we look at both fighters stylistically, and we look at Floyd Mayweather, and Floyd Mayweather Jr. was always known for having that very aggressive style of just going out there and getting the knockout against his opponents. You know what I mean? Like he was one of these guys who would really just slip a lot of these shots and kind of work on the inside of his opponents and you know just go out there and brawl it out with them. You know what I mean? That's what he would do, and he would get these like spectacular knockouts in his career, and that sort of that was sort of his style. That sort of like just go forward and don't stop going forward type of style. He was a very aggressive fighter, and he was definitely a beast in his prime. And then we look at Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was sort of the opposite. Mike Tyson sort of had the style of okay, I'm going to outbox you, basically. You know what I mean? He would outbox pretty much all of his opponents. He outboxed Trevor Berbick, Larry Holmes. You know what I mean? He was outboxing Buster Douglas before he got knocked out in that fight. You know what I mean? Michael Spinks, he also completely outboxed, right? There were so many fighters in his career that he outboxed. That was sort of his style. He's not as good of a boxer as Tyson Fury. We all know that Tyson Fury is, the best boxer to, ever live on this planet, right? But Mike Tyson is, he's not that far off in my opinion. But yeah, so those were both guys' style, really. You know what I mean? In terms of who would win, we look at both fights and we look at who would win. So a lot of people think this is a dumb fight. You know what I mean? And the reason they say that is because, okay, Mayweather's a welterweight while Mike Tyson's a heavyweight, so it doesn't make any sense. Well, guess what? Alexander Usyk was a cruiserweight and Anthony Joshua was a heavyweight. You know what I mean? And Usyk beat Anthony Joshua, right? So, weight classes, it's not unheard of when you get two weight classes colliding like that, right? And yeah, sure, I know that Anthony Joshua, like, he's not a good fighter, right? And that's mainly why Usyk was able to beat him. I mean, Anthony Joshua, like, I don't know. I mean, Anthony Joshua was always this guy who just didn't have any power in his hands. He basically had pillow for hands. You know what I mean? And in terms of his career, I mean, Vladimir Klitschko was, always overrated, right? He had a glass chin. You know what I mean? Just like how AJ's chin is also weak. You know what I mean? And Klitschko had zero power in his hands, right? Um, Alexander Povetkin, same thing. I mean, he was just terrible. He had a glass chin as well, and he was just short for his division. Dylan White just, he had a shit left hook, in my opinion. Joseph Parker had terrible footwork, terrible hand speed, in my opinion, and Ruiz had slower hand speed than Parker, so that was Joshua lost to him, right? And the list goes on. I mean, the guy is just same thing with Pulev. Pulev had a terrible jab, and like I said, his career was just not all that good, and his record is it just shows, right? So we all know that Tyson Fury is the superior boxer, right? You know what I mean? But that's that. But anyway, my point is that it's not unheard of when you get, you know, two weight classes like that, um, colliding with each other, right? I mean, I think, and what's funny about that is I think Usyk was probably Joshua's worst opponent. You know what I mean? Because you look at Usyk and he was, I don't know, the guy had like just terrible technique. I mean, his hand speed was terrible, his footwork was terrible. I mean, I just don't understand how Joshua, he faces his worst opponent yet, right? Like a complete bum, and he somehow manages to lose a decision, right? I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, we all know that if Anthony Joshua fought Tyson Fury, I mean, Tyson Fury would completely go, he would go right through Anthony Joshua, right, within one round. I mean, we all know that, so I'm not even going to debate that, you know what I mean? But, in terms of this fight with Mike Tyson and Floyd Mayweather Jr., like I said, this is interesting stylistically, but if I had to pick a fighter to win this one, I would say that Floyd Mayweather Jr. wins by knockout, you know what I mean? I think what would happen in this fight is Mike Tyson would be fighting on the back foot a lot, looking to just run around the ring, fight this like Muhammad Ali style of just hit and not get hit. You know what I mean? I think he would try to do that to Mayweather. But I think Mayweather's aggression, I mean, you guys don't realize how aggressive he was back in the day. You know what I mean? How, the way he beat up guys like Manny Pacquiao, Marcus Medina, right? Jose Luis Castillo, right? Who else? You know what I mean? I think, and Ricky Hatton was probably his best win, his best knockout. I mean, that was like a vicious knockout for sure, right? And his third last fight, which was against Conor McGregor, right? I mean, that was very impressive. The Conor McGregor from the UFC, the featherweight champion and lightweight champion in the UFC. That was probably his best win to date, against Conor McGregor. And then obviously he beat that kid in an exhibition match. I forgot his name, but that was a good win. But I don't think it's not as impressive as the Logan Paul win. I think the win against Logan Paul was like probably one of his most impressive wins to date. In terms of Mike Tyson, I don't know. I just think the guy was chinny back in the day. You know what I mean? I think he was very susceptible to getting knocked out. You know what I mean? And, you face someone who's, so aggressive and vicious like Floyd Mayweather Jr., then I don't know. I just don't really see Mike Tyson winning this fight. I just think it takes one shot for Mayweather to land on him, and I think he's going to go down. So my prediction is Floyd Mayweather Jr. via fourth round KO. You know what I mean? I think that's how this fight will play out, and yeah. But hey, it still could happen because look, they're doing exhibition matches, right? So yeah. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm gonna put a link because I want to kind of I've actually DM'd Mayweather and Mike Tyson on Instagram. You know what I mean? They haven't responded to me. I mean, obviously they won't because, you know what I mean? I'm a small YouTube channel and stuff, but I've actually put a link in the comments for a petition to get this fight made. You know what I mean? So if you guys want to, sign it in the description box, there should be a link. It goes to change.org or whatever, and it's or something like that anyway, and it's a petition saying, let's get this Mike Tyson versus Floyd Mayweather Jr. fight on before it's too late, and let's make it a professional bout with 4-ounce gloves and no headgear, right? You know what I mean? It's I think it's gonna be good. I think if we get a ton of signatures, if we get enough signatures, we can make the fight happen. So yeah, just go into the link in the description box, and yeah, just sign it, and that'd be good. So yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys think this fight will still happen. I think it will. I think it will, for sure. I think it's a good fight. I think it's an overlooked fight, and I can't wait to see it. And it's better than some dumb fight like Canelo versus Bivol, right? I mean, I don't know why, like, they're allowing Canelo to fight. I mean, Canelo's just this, I don't know, this steroid cheat, obviously, you know what I mean? And Bivol also isn't really a good light heavyweight either, you know what I mean? And, we have that dumb rematch with AJ and Usyk. We all know that AJ is going to get knocked out by Usyk in the rematch, you know what I mean? And in terms of the Fury and White fight, like I said, Fury's the superior Gypsy King, you know what I mean? And he's going to completely, I don't know, I just think he just beats everyone in the heavyweight division within the first round, in my opinion. So yeah, that's another dumb fight. This is the best fight to happen, is Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Mike Tyson in 2022, right? So yeah, I'm excited. But anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Take care and peace.